One more try. Does it work now? Okay, I see a yes here. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, great. So now that we have overcome this technical issue, I'm happy to welcome you all to today's webinar. Thanks again for joining. And yeah, you have already discovered this chat function on your right-hand side. Of course, this is intended for asking questions, giving feedback, telling me that you don't hear me. But during the, okay, somebody's writing that they can still not hear me. Okay. I think, like, from my technical perspective, everything should be working now. Okay. So my microphone is working. Not sure if there's any problem if you watch the webinar via your mobile phone, in fact. Very sorry if that does not work. It should work, actually. Okay. Maybe you can try to figure out yourself for the moment so that I can go ahead, yeah? Okay, so as I just wanted to conclude, the chat box is, of course, great for questions and giving comments like now. But during my presentation, I won't be able to really take a look, and this will basically interrupt the flow of the presentation. So I would kindly ask you to wait with your questions until the end of the presentation. And if you really want to know something very specific and have like a detailed question, then please also feel free to write me an email or to give me a call so that I can explain you the things you want to know in detail. And I will try to do so as soon as possible. Yeah, okay, so just have a last look into the chat function. Can hear it being. Okay, my colleague Scott just gave you a little hint, so maybe you need to unmute for those that don't hear. So maybe Scott can give you the instructions while I start in order not to waste too much time. So yeah. Once again, welcome to my webinar with the wonderful topic, Indulge Your Senses in Vietnam. For all those people that don't know me yet, my name is Justine and I work for Refine Asia, which is basically the dedicated MICE special interest travel and luxury brand of Focus Asia. So my team and I, in our daily work, we are creating travel arrangements that go a bit beyond the standard tour packages. And we are always looking for some great new ideas to surprise our clients and to enhance their travels. And related to that, last year we came up with a new concept, which is called Senses. And on my first slide, I would like to basically just tell you something about the Senses concept. It basically means that we have certain travel ideas that you can put together to a very, very great long tour, or you can simply use these little ideas to enhance your classical itinerary and to give a bit more special experiences to your clients by adding something here and there. And following this concept, we basically try to enhance the tours in all our destinations. And as you can see here on the next slide, we are covering quite a lot of countries. And obviously, our time is limited today, so I will only talk about Vietnam. But you are, of course, free to ask for special enhancements and special sensual experiences in all the other destinations as well. We have them. And although I will only focus on Vietnam today, of course, everything is possible in the other destinations more or less as well. When we talk about Vietnam, I would like to base my presentation on a relatively classical Vietnam tour that probably most of you have sold or at least know more or less. Starting in the north of Vietnam, in Hanoi, visiting the Halong Bay, going to the center, Hue and Hoi An, and ending in Saigon. And I don't want to talk too much and don't want to tell you too many details about this tour, as I think you must be familiar with it anyhow. But just by looking at this little summary of the classical highlights that you will visit during a standard Vietnam tour, you can see that there are a lot of monuments, a lot of ancient historical sites. Of course, there are also some encounters with the culture in form of a water puppet show, and you also get some nature experiences during your Halong Bay cruise and in the Mekong Delta. But all in all, it's really a tour that bears a lot of visits and a lot of historical monuments, but it does not give you such an in-depth interaction with the local people and the local culture. And the aim of my presentation is basically to give you some ideas where this can happen, especially for clients that are looking to get to know the destination a bit more in depth, that are looking for extraordinary things to, basically to enhance their travel experience. And following this route, we will also start in the north of Vietnam. And obviously, the main city where most of the people arrive is the capital of Hanoi. And in Hanoi, I would like to give you the first recommendation for this webinar. And my recommendation is basically to change the classical Hanoi sightseeing into a kind of insider's tour that combines classical elements, classical sites with some small nice additions that can really give value to the tour. And here you can see some impressions of my perfect start into a sightseeing day in Hanoi. And I like to elaborate on that on the following slide a bit. So if it comes to me, the perfect kickoff of a day in Vietnam or in Hanoi is a strong Vietnamese coffee. And most people don't know it, but Vietnam is actually the second largest producer for coffee after Brazil. And related to that, especially Hanoi has a huge scene of lovely little coffee bars and houses. And I guess it's a really nice start for you and your clients to kick off the day with the coffee. And once the strong coffee has awakened your senses and your brain cells start to work, I think it's a pretty nice idea to do a little language lesson. Not a long one, just 1 or 2 hours, learning some basic phrases that will help you to communicate with the locals that you meet during your tour, that will break the ice and that will basically put a smile on the faces of the locals if you can say hi and thank you and goodbye in the local language. So it's actually a really practical start into a day as well. Another pretty practical thing is to include a visit of the Museum of Ethnology in your tour. Many people have that in their standard itineraries anyhow, but in order to enhance it, I recommend to go there with a local professor that can really tell you a lot of things about the exponents that you see there and put the whole thing into perspective for you. And this will also help you to understand the cultural things that you encounter during the rest of your tour very, very easily. Something like that is in fact also possible in the Temple of Literature. So even there, we can hire a special expert for you and give you an in-depth excursion there. When it comes to the general sightseeing of the city, I highly recommend to take the traditional means of transportation of Vietnam, which is a scooter or vintage Vespa. And in my opinion, there's actually no more authentic and more fun way to go around the city. Of course, you don't need to ride it on your own. You just sit in back. A professional driver will drive the Vespa for you, where you can enjoy the sights and the sounds and the smells of the city. And basically really feel the city while exploring it. For those that don't feel comfortable with the Vespa thing, there's also the possibility to hire some army jeeps. So it's maybe a bit more comfortable, and for people that might be scared of the traffic, also the better alternative. It's in fact also a great thing to do for mice groups. You can easily combine it with a great team building in form of a city hunt or a kind of amazing race scavenger hunt activity. But it can also be arranged for FITs. Sightseeing-wise, of course, a lot of people, when they are in Hanoi, they take a look at the old quarter with its 36 different alleys. And also here I recommend to dig a bit deeper and to go a bit more further in the network of the alleys, as there are many interesting hidden spots to discover, like, for example, the train street. Everybody knows about the train street in Thailand, but there's actually one in Hanoi as well, where you can see how the locals live and do their daily work, like washing their dishes and drying their laundry right next to an active train track. There's even a little cafe there where you can basically do the kickoff of the day with a nice Vietnamese coffee. And there's also the possibility to arrange a meeting with the resident of this area that can tell you something about the history and put also the current situation into perspective for you. So again, a very authentic way to get a first idea of the life in Hanoi and the life in Vietnam. And last but not least, I would also recommend to not only focus on the city center, but also try to discover some parts of the suburbs, like, for example, the Red River Delta, which is just a half an hour drive outside of Hanoi, and there you will encounter a completely different world. There are like fruit plantations of kumquats and peaches that are grown for the Tet Festival celebrations. There are little handicraft villages where the people produce all kinds of funny stuff. There are lovely things to encounter. It's a completely different atmosphere than in the city. Less traffic, less busy, and just a nice little excursion close to Hanoi that will also give you some further insights. Okay, so that was my first idea for Hanoi. Let's move to the Halong Bay now. Oh, by the way, here you can see some more impressions of the things that I've just talked about. So you see the jeeps and the train track alley, and a local temple in a little alley, as well as the kumquat plantation in the Red River Delta. Okay, moving to Halong Bay. In the Halong Bay, there are obviously not so many variations possible, as everything is pretty limited to the cruise itineraries. So if you have clients that still look for something more individual and something more private, I would recommend 3 things to them. First of all, instead of taking the 3.5-hour car journey in order to reach the Halong Bay, there's the possibility to take a seaplane transfer. And this is obviously great, as it cuts down the total travel time to 45 minutes only. And you can also combine it with a scenic flight over the bay, which will give your clients a really, really lovely first impression of the bay. And it's really kind of an amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience. And of course, it's a bit more expensive than the regular transfer, but it's not that expensive. So it's even affordable for regular clients, in fact. When it comes to the actual cruising part, as I said, there are not so many variations possible. But if you're really having clients that are looking for more individual experiences, then it's possible to take a private cruise. So you can either charter a boat if you have a group with, let's say, 15, 20 cabins, or there are even small boats with only 2 or 3 cabins, which you can even charter for a family or a little private FIT party. And by taking this private charters, the guests have the advantage to get into more hidden spots of the Halong Bay, like, for example, the Bai Tu Long Bay. And they can do the sightseeing of the caves and the different activities like the kayaking, less affected by other tourists. And nowadays there are hundreds of thousands of tourists in the Halong Bay every day. So if you really want to give them something special, then this private cruise option is definitely a worthwhile thing to consider. And there are also nice add-ons possible with all those private cruise providers. So you can, for example, have a barbecue lunch on one of the beaches. And there even used to be the possibility to have a dinner in a cave, which is now restricted. but there's still many nice additions that are possible there. You're more flexible, and of course you get to enjoy the beauty of the Halong Bay in a much more exclusive and a private way. Yeah, last but not least, another nice tip for the end of your Halong Bay experience actually. So instead of going back to Hanoi straight away, there's the possibility to make a stopover at a village called Thien Mu village. And this is a kind of community-based tourism initiative that gives you the chance to interact with the local villagers, have lunch with them, enjoy a very authentic water puppet show there. As you might know, water puppet shows are again kind of standard element that are often included in Hanoi. And there are many theaters around the town. But in fact, this old tradition of water puppetry comes from the villages in the north of Hanoi. So this is actually the most authentic place to witness them. And they also have a little nice additional program where you can basically create your own water puppet, paint it, and then have a little water puppet class where you learn how to master your puppet. So again, nice little addition to a otherwise very boring transfer back from Halong Bay to Hanoi. So yeah, that was the north of Vietnam. Now we move to the center of Vietnam. And here we will start with the former ancient capital of Hue, which is mainly famous for its royal remains. So there's this Imperial Citadel, and there are many different tombs that you can visit there, and it's all great and it's all interesting. But in my opinion, to really experience Hue's former royal past and the splendor and everything that is related to the history of the city, take a tour to the local garden houses. And these are little houses, actually not little, they're usually quite big and really masterpieces of architecture that belong to the descendants of the former royal caste and the former aristocrats of Hue. And yeah, these owners, they are really, really engaged in the conservation of their history, and they really like to show tourists around, and they will show you around their beautiful houses and their beautiful gardens, which are all kind of set in the Feng Shui environment, and they all follow philosophical principles. And they are keen to tell you their family stories, and you are invited to have tea with them or even a lunch with them. And most of the time they are really sophisticated and well-educated people that can tell you a lot about the past and again also about the present in Vietnam. Apart from that, for those clients that seek a bit of relaxation after the first days of sightseeing in Hanoi and Hue, there is a nice place called the Zen House, and it's actually a kind of a spiritual retreat where they offer different practices like Qigong, yoga, meditation classes, and so on. And they also have a little cooking school and an organic garden, and they're famous for their great organic food. So what we usually recommend here is a kind of meditation lunch, where you combine a fresh and healthy meal in this beautiful environment with a guided walking meditation in the beautiful garden of the Zen House. And there are several small rituals performed there by the hosts that will really help you to calm down and to have a really relaxing day, or at least a half-day experience in the nature with good food and really a sensual recovery kind of thing. Okay, from Hue, we now move to Hoi An. First, again, some impressions of the garden houses and the Zen experience. And I guess already from the pictures, you can see that it's a really nice, ancient environment that invites the guests to calm down and to relax a bit. Okay, but now we come to a more active experience in Hoi An. And this is actually a tour that many tour operators offer already. It's kind of popular and not really an insider tip anymore, but I think it's still worth to be mentioned. as it's a really, really nice experience where you get to know the life of the Vietnamese farmers and fishers around Hoi An. There are different variations of the tour. I personally like the trip where you start with a bicycle tour around some local villages. And yeah, you basically cycle around Hoi An and stop at some villages. And then you reach the so-called Traque vegetable village. That's again a kind of tourism initiative where you have the chance to interact with the farmers and actually help them with their day-to-day activities. Like you have the possibility to be in the rice field with them, to put some seeds in the soil, to ride a water buffalo, to help them with the watering the plants. And yeah, you can even harvest, if it's the season, some rice with them. And after that, you can basically process the grown vegetables and the harvested rice in a little cooking demonstration. You can then have lunch with the farmers and really interact with them. And after that, you move on to a fishing village where you will jump on a little wooden boat. And then the fisher community will basically teach you how to catch fish with the traditional techniques. You get the chance to go on a little basket boat as well and to enjoy the beautiful scenery again. It's, of course, a very family-friendly program that bears a lot of little surprises, and it's actually a really fun and interactive way to learn something about the life of the Vietnamese countryside community. And at the same time, it's also fantastic for groups. Again, there are many possibilities for team buildings and additions, like a dinner in the rice field or a dinner on a little bamboo basket boat. Just altogether a really, really nice experience. And apart from its beautiful countryside, Hoi An is also very famous for its local arts and crafts. And in the old town, you can find hundreds of beautiful shops selling great souvenirs and local handicraft. But instead of just going there and buying these beautiful things, you can actually see how they are made and even engage in this process with the local artisans by taking part in several workshops. And there are numerous possibilities from fruit carving, over lantern making, bamboo wood carving, pottery. There are calligraphy classes. You can build your own conical hat, just to name a few examples. So in fact, there's a class for everything. And I think it's really nice to create your own souvenir and also to learn how the local artisans do their daily work. So again, something for young and old and really active experience. Okay, so that was a little excursion to the center of Vietnam. Now we move to the south of Vietnam, and here we will mainly talk about Saigon, the big metropolitan city in the south, which is very famous for different things. And I think it's a kind of shame that most of the tour operators actually only sell it in form of a one-day city tour, which, to be very honest with you, does usually not cover the most interesting parts. And I don't know why this is the case. Maybe it's because the city is so overwhelming that they just want to send their guests to the Mekong Delta right away or give them some more relaxed experiences. But I think for most of the people that are really active and that are keen to experience the life of Vietnam, Saigon is a must. And there's so many nice sensual experiences that you can discover there, that I decided to basically keep this part of the presentation really based on the different senses that we have. And I like to start with the most obvious one, the sights and the sea. And of course, a city like Saigon gives you a lot of food for the eye and for your camera just by walking down the street. There's so much to see that it can be overwhelming, but actually it's also nice to look a bit behind the scenes. And what I can highly recommend is, for example, an art tour. There are different kinds of tours in Saigon. There are different kinds of artists, of course. There are graffiti artists and installation artists that do really modern artwork that puts like the current situation, the economic situation, the society on display, and that express their thoughts and their criticism in their work. But there are also some old, very traditional galleries and private collections where you see some old art that can also tell you a lot about the history. And in fact, if you have a good guide there, and usually these art tour guides are really, really good, you can learn even more from an art tour than from just visiting the standard monuments during a Saigon city tour. Another really, really great thing that is pretty new is the so-called Saigon Culture Makers Tour. And here you get the chance to meet with young people that are creative and that are kind of visionaries in Saigon, and that shape the current modern Saigon in form of their art. They are like musicians you can visit, fashion designers, people that opened up a really cool new bar or restaurant. There are poets or young people that do theater, and you can basically visit them in their offices or in their ateliers and have a really open cultural exchange. And I think this is a really great tool for young people especially, and for people that want to get to know the contemporary Saigon and Vietnam, because it's actually a very developed city already and there's so much going on that this is a nice addition. Talking about art and contemporary art, I can also endorse the AO show, which is a great mix of, I would say, theater, musical, acrobatics, and it's just really, really special. In fact, I don't like musicals. I don't really like ballet or dance shows. I'm also not a big fan of circus, but this show is really, really amazing. And they somehow manage to tell you stories about Vietnam's history and the present Vietnam, although you don't understand the word. So it's really emotional and you get goosebumps, I can guarantee you, by just looking at the things that are happening on stage. And yeah, it's just a very, very, very nice addition. After a sightseeing day, just book a ticket for your clients and I'm sure they will really enjoy it. So now we come to the next sense, hearing. And of course, Saigon is a very noisy city. There's a lot of traffic. But there are actually also some nice sounds that should not be missed, in my opinion. And one of my favorite sounds in Vietnam is related to birds. And there's actually this funny thing in one of the parks in the city, where every morning you can see an armada of old men coming to the park, carrying bird cages with them. And basically they hang them up in the trees or in a special construction. And then the birds are singing together and they're practicing their singing skills, while the old men just sit there listening to their birds, drinking coffee, chit-chatting with each other, reading the newspaper. And it's a really, really authentic Saigon thing that is super interesting for guests to see, and also, again, a nice start into the day. And of course, there's also music done by humans in Saigon. And if you have some clients that are really enthusiastic about music, I would recommend a visit to the Truc My House. It's a house owned by two musicians that have studied at the Vietnamese National Academy of Music. And they are really keen to present the traditional music to the world. So they have this massive collection of traditional instruments, and they invite the guests to listen to a private concert. And then at the end of the concert, the guests get to play those instruments. And the host will basically teach them how to do it and give them a little coaching. And it's a really funny way to engage with the locals. Again, obviously nobody's able to play the instruments very well, so there's a lot of laughter and a really fun sound experience. And for all those that are more into modern music, also Saigon is the best place to be. There are so many cool bars and restaurants where there's live music every night, and you can even spend the whole night hopping from bar to bar, going to different places, listening to different bands. Nowadays, there are even these kind of beer gardens, which are, basically outside sitting restaurants and bars that all feature karaoke and live music. And I guess there's no better way to mingle with the local people than just spending an evening, drinking some beer and having some good time. And then talking about beer, we come to the taste of Saigon, which is actually one of my favorite slides. I love the Vietnamese food, and especially in Saigon, there are hundreds or thousands of great restaurants, cafes, bars, street food stalls where you can sample the most amazing food. And we at Refine Asia, we are of course happy to give you recommendations and to do reservations for you. But in addition to that, we also like to encourage you to give your guests some kicks to try some food experiences that they would probably not do on their own. And one of those things would, for example, be to start the day with a traditional Vietnamese breakfast, which is a hot noodle soup. And the best place to do so is the street food stalls in the city, where you just sit on tiny plastic stools and enjoy a hot noodle soup for breakfast. We can even create a little tour around that to find the best new noodle soup in town, like to do a little scavenger hunt for groups, for example. Or we can even ask a local street food vendor to give his little soup stall to the clients for half an hour so that they can play street food vendor and soup cooker themselves for an hour. In general, there are many great street food experiences and many great tours in Saigon, reaching from breakfast walking tours over nighttime scooter tours. And there are many good options, and we are happy to recommend you the best providers. Especially some of them are also a bit exotic in the choice of food. So some of those providers even take you to the snail street, where your guests can sample snails and frogs and all kinds of extraordinary seafood. And of course, we will make sure that a certain standard of hygiene and everything is met. So that your guests can really enjoy this experience and try out things that they would never try out somewhere else. For guests that are still looking for a more sophisticated experience, I would like to mention a special cooking class. And again, there are hundreds of cooking classes in Vietnam, and there are some really, really good ones. But one of the best one is certainly the Grains Cooking Studio, which is owned by a Vietnamese Australian chef. He's super famous, has his own TV show in several countries. He has restaurants all over the world. And he has opened up this cooking studio in Saigon, where you can basically book a private or also a group class. And you can pick your menu from different choices and basically create your own personalized cooking class. So this also involves a market visit where you will choose the ingredients yourself. And it's a kind of culinary experience where you get to tailor your cooking class based on your own taste. Again, really, really nice. And after the taste, we come now to the scent of Saigon, which is of course also connected to street food pretty much. But in addition to that, I like to recommend a visit to the flower market of Saigon, for example, which can be easily combined with any city tour. And you can just add it without any extra cost and give your clients a little nice impression and a little change during their tour. Also Chinatown and its temples should not be missed. There are thousands of incense sticks burning, mixed with fresh flower and fruit offerings. This is really special central appeal. And there's even this one temple where you can put a wish on a little spiral incense stick. and then you hang them up, and the spiral burns down for several hours, and the scent and your wish are spread in the air. And it's a nice little addition and a nice little gift for your guests as well. In fact, I've done it last year, and my wish has not become true yet, but I really hope that there's still a chance. Maybe the incense spiral is still burning, so keep your fingers crossed for me. And the visit to Chinatown can also be easily combined with the traditional medicine tour. There is this museum in Saigon called the Thien Mu Museum, which is all about the traditional Vietnamese healing, and there are several local pharmacies that are full of exotic herbs and dried plants and teas. And when you visit them, you get the chance to smell them and to try them, and it's a really exotic and interesting sensual experience again. Okay, so now we are already at my last slide, and this is referring to the feeling of Saigon. And of course, all the things that I've presented and all the senses that I've presented so far also have to do with the feeling. And there are again a huge number of examples that can give you the feeling of a destination. But to keep it short, I just chose 3 that I want to present you. And the first one is actually a bit connected to the recommendation I gave you in Hanoi already, where I said that it's nice to do a sightseeing tour by scooter or by a vintage Vespa. And in Saigon, they also have the possibility to actually do it in old French vintage cars, which is a nice bridge to the colonial history of Saigon. And as these cars are actually, again, open cabriolets, this is, again, a nice way to experience the city with all your senses and to really get the feeling of the city while you drive through the fresh night air. Another thing to get the feeling of Saigon is just super easy. As I already said, in context with this live music and bathing, if you really want to know Saigon, then just spend 1 or 2 hours in the city's park, the Tao Dan Park, where all the locals go to spend their free time. It's actually also the place where this bird lovers club meets. And people just go there to practice Tai Chi in the morning, or dance groups meet there for their trainings. Teenagers go there to hang out. Old ladies sit there and gossip. And you basically just get a cross-section of the whole society and a very authentic glimpse in the local lifestyle when you just spend 1 or 2 hours there. And again, this can be easily combined with the classical sightseeing tour. We can arrange a coffee break there, or even arrange a Tai Chi morning class for the guests to kick off their days in the park and to really get an idea of the local life in Saigon. And of course, the life in Saigon is different than the life in the countryside. And my last recommendation for this presentation is actually to enhance the Mekong Delta experience that many people book after their Saigon sightseeing or in connection to their Saigon visit. And most people actually visit the Delta during the day trip, or if they have a bit more money and a bit more time, they take one of these overnight cruises where they sleep on the boat or in a nice hotel. And all those tours, they are great, and we also offer them. And they include village visits and bicycle rides and some encounters with some local producers. But I feel if you really want to experience the Mekong Delta, the best thing to do so is actually staying in one of the villages in a local homestay. And in the Mekong Delta, we are luckily having a good choice of very neat and clean homestays that give you the chance to really be part of a family for 1 or 2 nights, to have lunch with them, to relax in the garden with them, to maybe do some rituals with them. And I guess this is also kind of the whole point of this presentation and the resume of this whole census portfolio. If you want to enhance the tours for your guests and appeal to their senses, then just offer them some activities that will bring them closer to the people of and bring them closer to the culture and the nature, and just make them experience the real life rather than just sending them from one monument to the other. So yeah, that's my resume for our census enhancements, and I hope that you have enjoyed the presentation, and I thank you a lot for your attention. Yeah, this is basically the end, and now I'm happy to answer all your questions. You can write them in the chat, or if it's something more elaborate, please just send me an email or give me a call. I'm happy to give you information about all those different things, and also give you some inputs for the other destinations that we offer. And before I say goodbye, I will also put a little survey on here that you can fill out in 1 or 2 minutes. So I would really appreciate to get your feedback and your ideas regarding future webinars. And yeah, last but not least, I also want to encourage you to join our next webinar, which will be held in July. And our country manager from Myanmar, Mr. Guy Doucelier, will tell you something about this magical country and take you on a journey to Myanmar. Yeah. So that's it. Now I go back to the chat function if somebody asks me. Okay, I already see a first question there from Semini, who's asking what is the price difference between a seaplane transfer and a normal transfer to Halong Bay. It depends what kind of transfer you have booked, as there are SIC transfers to Halong Bay or private transfers. But just to give you an idea, the seaplane flight is around, depending on the season, around $200 US. So it's actually not that expensive for the experience that you get. First time to hear something interesting for Saigon. Very nice, and thanks. Welcome. The village name for the water puppet show is Yen Duc Village. I'm happy to send you also the detailed program for that little excursion there. Will you be able to share the presentation? Of course. I can send it to you via email, but it will be also put on the Focus Asia website for download. So you can basically listen to the webinar as many times as you wish. Is it possible to book a package for yoga and meditation in the Zen garden in Hue? Yeah, that's possible, for sure. There are different programs available. You can even spend 3 days there doing a kind of retreat and joining regular yoga and meditation classes there. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, I don't see any new questions coming. So if you don't mind, I would now put on the survey, and you have a few minutes time to fill it out. And if you have some further questions and like to get some more information, just drop me an email, just call me, and we will stay in touch. Okay? So here you go for the survey. I hope you can see it now. Could just somebody let me know if you can see the survey, just to be sure, because I'm not that into this technical part of this webinar. Is it visible for you? Okay, great. Thank you so much. And now I will say goodbye to you and wish you a lovely day ahead and hope to stay in touch. So just let me know if I can do anything for you.